Hello, thank you for joining me on this presentation on rape culture. I will be discussing certain social norms that are harmful and perpetuate violence, in particular sexual violence. I'd like to begin by introducing myself. My name is Cherry Martin, and I'm a current graduate student at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. Sexual assault is a widespread problem. In the United States, every 68 seconds, someone is sexually assaulted. That is roughly every minute. Sexual assault does not discriminate against age. About 54% of victims are between the ages of 18 and 34, 15% are between the ages of 12 and 17, 28% are between the ages of 35 and 65, and 3% are older than 65. When it comes to child abuse, 34% are children under the age of 12, and 66% are victims between the ages of 12 and 17. 82% of all juvenile victims are female, while 90% of adult rape victims are female. 1 out of every 10 rape victims are male. More than 40% of assaults do not involve incapacitation. That is, almost half of rapes do not involve drugs or alcohol. Some of these numbers may be even higher, considering that 2 out of 3 rapes go unreported. Researchers at the Georgia State University conducted a thematic analysis, that is, they analyzed first-person accounts looking for patterns. They narrowed their research to 68 anonymous accounts from sexual perpetrators. Through this, they found 6 common themes that motivated perpetrators. While most perpetrators in the study were men with female victims, there were some cases of female and homosexual male accounts. The first theme they found was sexual scripts. These are gender social norms that guide sexual behavior, frequently leading to victim blaming, objectification of women, and hostility towards women. To many, these symbolize what is appropriate, anticipated, or desired. A common component of sexual scripts is a notion that women actually mean yes when they say no to sex. These perpetrators reason that a woman is supposed to resist while a man is supposed to persist. Another gendered or culturally bound notion is the belief that men cannot be raped by women. Another common theme was victim blaming. Perpetrators blamed their victims for drinking too much, not saying no clearly or loudly enough, and not physically resisting their advances. Perpetrators denied culpability when victims had flirted or had sex with them previously, or if they had consensual sex after the assault. Some men feel indignation and contempt towards women. One perpetrator recounts raping his wife once a year and enjoying inflicting pain, and admits he gets worse every year. Another describes assaulting a woman so violently she could barely walk the next day. These perpetrators have dehumanizing attitudes towards the victim and in turn use coercive tactics to gratify themselves. They often minimize women's feelings and experiences. Others blame it on biology or hormones, denying responsibility. They suggest that they cannot help themselves because their hormones drive their sexual behavior, regardless if they get consent or not. Many place the responsibility of preventing sexual assault on women. There is a notion that women just don't understand this aspect of men. Sexual objectification occurs when a person's body is separated from the whole, reducing him or her to an object or function. The person's value or desirability becomes attached to this symbolism or function, which exists for pleasure. Some perpetrators assign their victim a number, stating she wasn't a perfect 10, while others describe them as a sex toy. The final recurring theme was social sexualization. It represents the desire to have multiple sex partners, sex outside of the context of a relationship, or sex for personal physical gratification rather than intimacy. These perpetrators manipulated their victims, and some preferred them unconscious. Researchers found that there was overlap of themes among perpetrators. 37% were motivated by sexual scripts, 29% blamed their victims, 24% were hostile towards women, 18% blamed biology, 18% objectified their victim, and 18% were motivated by social sexuality. Studies have been conducted to investigate public perception on sexual assault. Researchers found that young children's accounts of sexual events are deemed to be more trustworthy compared to those 14 and older. However, some victims were perceived as not being a credible witness due to young age. Older victims were held responsible or blamed for their assaults, specifically the older the victim was or if they did not fight back. Victim gender also affected public perception. Men were deemed capable of fighting back and therefore were blamed in their assault. Gender roles and homophobic attributions resulted in victim blame. The victim-perpetrator relationship affected judgment towards the victim. When raped by a stranger, the victim was blamed less. When the victim was 15 years or older and knew their victim, they were perceived as less abused or even leading the perpetrator on. Perpetrator gender also influenced public perception. Male victims were blamed more when their perpetrators were women. Male respondents believed that men should always be available sexually to women, even in scenarios where the victim was 15 and under the age of consent. Finally, there were differences among respondents depending on their gender. Male respondents confused encouraging behavior with consent and had negative attributions towards child victims. Although social norms have created a rape culture, the fact remains rape is not the victim's fault, regardless of attitudes, location, gender, or age. Additionally, there is no justification for rape. I've mentioned factors that motivate perpetrators and even the public perception. However, individuals are responsible for their own actions and no one has the authority over someone else's body or person. As individuals, we must understand our own implicit bias or perceived notions about gender and what a victim should look or act like. You can decide to make a difference by discussing your experience, educating yourself and others, connecting survivors to resources, getting involved, debunking myth, and empowering survivors. Other ways to make a difference are abandoning outdated and discriminative social expectations and norms, advocating for policy change, and if you're a parent, being involved in your children's lives, encouraging children to speak up, discussing important topics with your children, regardless of gender, like consent, power, and privilege. Thank you for tuning in. If you'd like to learn more about sexual assault prevention, please subscribe to our YouTube channel at Scars of the Past Ministry or follow us on Facebook at Scars of the Past Inc. Additionally, you can email us at scarsofthepast@scarsofthepast.net for more information. And finally, here is a list of resources if you would like to learn more on the studies and statistics mentioned in this presentation.